Maurice drummed his scarred fingers against the crystalline table, watching the chronometer tick past the 30-minute mark. The celestial matchmaker's waiting lounge hummed with the quiet desperation of 100 species seeking connection across the stars. He'd almost convinced himself to leave when the doors whispered open. She wasn't human. Anastasia glided into the room on 6 elegant legs, her chitinous form catching the ambient light like polished obsidian. 2 primary arms crossed over her thorax, while 4 smaller manipulators adjusted the translation collar at her neck. Compound eyes, each facet gleaming with an intelligence that made Morris's breath catch, fixed upon him. Maurice. Her voice emerged from the translator as melodic as wind chimes, though he could hear the underlying clicks and whistles of her native tongue. I apologize for my tardiness. The atmospheric converter took longer to calibrate than expected. He stood, military training overriding his shock. No apologies necessary. I'm surprised. The agency said my match was humanoid. They said the same to me. Anastasia's mandibles clicked in what the translator rendered as gentle amusement. It seems the celestial matchmaker's algorithms care less about biology than we assumed. Maurice gestured to the seat across from him, a gesture of hospitality that transcended species. As she settled her considerable frame onto the reinforced chair, he studied her openly. The war had taught him to assess threats instantly, but all his instincts registered was curiosity, not danger. You're Valkyrie, he said, recognizing the species from his service days. I fought alongside your people during the Sigma offensive. Her smaller arms stilled. You were at Sigma? Then you saw what we became when cornered. I saw warriors who wouldn't abandon their wounded, who held the line when every tactical computer said to retreat. Maurice leaned forward. I saw honor. Something shifted in Anastasia's posture, a subtle relaxation that spoke volumes. The matchmaker's file said you were a veteran. It didn't mention you were that kind of veteran. Most species remember us as monsters from that battle. Most species weren't in the trenches with you. They ordered drinks, him a whiskey that burned with memories, her a phosphorescent nectar that glowed faintly in its container. The conversation flowed with unexpected ease, 2 soldiers finding common ground in shared trauma and hard-won wisdom. Why are you here? Anastasia asked after their 3rd round. A human war hero could have his pick of partners. Why submit to algorithmic matchmaking? Maurice traced the rim of his glass. Because everyone who picks me sees the medals first, the man second. They want the hero from the propaganda feeds, not the person who still wakes up screaming on bad nights. He met her multifaceted gaze. Why are you here? Because my people see me as contaminated. Her translator conveyed the bitterness clearly. I worked too closely with other species during the war. Learned to think in linear time like you humans, rather than the cyclical patterns of Valkyrie philosophy. My clutchmates say I've become too alien to find a proper mate among our kind. Their loss, Maurice said simply. She studied him for a long moment, compound eyes processing information in ways his simple binocular vision couldn't comprehend. The matchmaker gave us an 87% compatibility rating. I dismissed it as an error when I saw you were human. Now I'm not so certain it was wrong. Want to know what I think? Maurice signaled for another round. I think biology is the least interesting thing about a person. I've met humans who were more alien to me than any species I've encountered. And I've met beings who couldn't speak my language but understood me better than my own family. A radical philosophy for a human, Anastasia observed, though her tone held approval rather than criticism. War changes you. Makes you realize that the things that matter, courage, loyalty, humor, compassion, those aren't species-specific traits. They're universal. The chronometer marked the end of their scheduled hour, but neither moved to leave. Around them, other couples departed, some successful, others clearly mismatched. Maurice and Anastasia remained, their conversation deepening as the evening wore on. This is insane, she said eventually. Though her mandibles clicked with that sound, he'd learned meant amusement. We're from different worlds, different biologies. My people molt annually. Yours shed dead skin cells constantly. The logistical complications alone are just logistics, Maurice interrupted. Problems to solve, not walls to stop us. Humans didn't conquer space because it was easy. We did it because some things are worth the effort. And you think I'm worth the effort? I think, Maurice said carefully, That I've spent 3 hours talking to you and haven't once thought about leaving. That I've laughed more tonight than I have in months. That when you describe your homeworld's gardens, I can picture myself walking through them with you, even if I'd need an environmental suit to survive. Anastasia's primary arms uncrossed, reaching across the table. Maurice placed his hand in her larger, chitinous grip. The touch was alien, hard where he expected soft, cool where he anticipated warmth, and absolutely right. The matchmaker was correct, she said softly. 87% compatibility. Perhaps higher. There's only one way to find out. A second date, then? Despite the impossibility of it all. Maurice grinned, the expression transforming his war-hardened features. Lady, I'm human. We built cities on tidally locked planets. We taught ourselves to breathe methane just to shake hands with the Karathi. Impossible is just another word for not yet achieved. Anastasia's laugh emerged as a chittering cascade that the translator couldn't quite capture, but Maurice understood it perfectly. It was the sound of someone who'd given up on finding connection, discovering that hope had one more surprise in store. As they left the celestial matchmaker's establishment together, walking side by six-legged side into the neon-lit streets of the station, neither noticed the matchmaker's holographic form watching from the doorway. The AI's algorithms hummed with satisfaction. It had learned long ago that the best matches weren't about similar biology. They were about similar souls, and some souls, forged in the fires of war and tempered by loss, recognized each other across any divide, biological, cultural, or otherwise. That was the real secret humanity brought to the galaxy. The stubborn, beautiful refusal to let anything, even physics itself, stand between them and connection. Maurice and Anastasia had different forms, different worlds, different everything that could be measured and categorized. But they had the same scars, the same strength, the same willingness to take one more chance on something impossible. And in the end, that made all the difference.